Let's turn to the war in Ukraine now and the ongoing fighting in the eastern city of Bakhmut. The city, close to the areas occupied by Russia in Ukraine's eastern Donbass region, has effectively been under siege for months. Well, Russian forces have been advancing on it, but Ukraine's military leadership has promised to keep fighting for the city. That came after it seemed preparations were being made for a withdrawal, but that's now been ruled out by President Zelensky. And the head of the Wagner mercenary group, which is spearheading the Russian attack, has called for more ammunition and reinforcements if they are to win the battle. Well, the UK's Ministry of Defence has also touched on Bakhmut in its daily intelligence bulletin on Ukraine. It says the Ukrainian defence of the city continues to degrade forces on both sides. But it adds that over the weekend, the defenders likely stabilised their defensive perimeter following previous Russian advances into the north of the town. However, it also notes that because Russia has destroyed bridges to Bakhmut, Ukraine's resupply efforts are being hampered by the need to use unpaved tracks. Well, we often report on the statistics about casualties from the war in Ukraine, but rarely do we actually hear about what happens to those who've been injured in the conflict. Well, now the BBC has been given access to one hospital in Lviv in western Ukraine, where the wounded are given specialist rehabilitation treatment. Now, warning, you may find some parts of this report from our Ukraine correspondent, James Waterhouse, upsetting.
This is when Ilya Pilipenko's war ended. His tank had just gone over a mine in the southern Kherson region last September. He holds on as his comrades take him to safety. Ilya suffered burns across a third of his body and seriously injured his leg. The journey for wounded soldiers is a long one. In Lviv, western Ukraine, thousands end up at this rehabilitation centre. In this war of old, injuries from explosions or shells are the most common. While Ilya is one of many, it's been an isolating 6 months.
I had many surgeries, a skin graft and 3 operations on my leg. There was a search for doctors, hope for specialists who may be able to save my leg. Then there was disappointment, and then some hope, because losing a limb is not the end.
Ilya is learning to look ahead. But his next chapter is unlikely to be from the front line. Thousands of injured soldiers find themselves in hospitals like this across Ukraine, and that is putting a real strain on the country's health system. The fighting, or the brutality of it, that they've come from is unimaginable, but a return to a fuller life is possible. On a cold Kyiv morning is a perfect case in point. We last saw Hlib in May, when he was being treated for a broken pelvis and jaw after he returned from captivity. He's also lost vision in one eye and has been told his military days are over. Instead, he helps other veterans.
My country, my troops, the Marines need the best of the best. Deep inside, I still feel guilty I'm not in the forces. But I can be effective even when I'm not in military uniform.
Every Ukrainian bears some of this invasion's weight. Where there is hurt, there is some healing, despite everything. James Waterhouse, BBC News, Kyiv.